Oh, welcome to Sunday Science, everybody. Glad you could join us on this wonderful Thursday evening. Obviously, Sunday just likes to jump around, and when it comes to the world of science, sometimes you have to do a little bit of jumping around and just roll with the way that things are going. Today we have a special guest that was on earlier, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, Hillel Finder, and he had an amazing trip, it sounds like, out to St. Bees to do some pretty cool experiments, and he is joining us again today so that he can describe what all of that entailed and how he went about going out into the world and sciencing as opposed to sitting around and not doing anything, because it's real easy to sit around and not do anything.
Maybe for some people.
Well, unfortunately for more people than it's probably, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but going out and actually immersing yourself in the science of the world around us is so much fun, and I'm really glad to have you on the show. So I'm going to go ahead and toss things over to you, Hillel, so that you can let everyone know kind of what you were doing, what your goals there were, and some of the awesomeness that you were able to do out and across the pond.
Well, first of all, Andy, thanks for having me on in the first place, and thanks especially for having me back. I really appreciate the chance to show myself even more than I usually do.
Absolutely. Glad you joined.
Yeah, thanks. So, anyway,
ready to be
a
presented,
couple weeks
Hill?
ago. Oh, sorry.
Shall I present you now, Hill?
Oh, sure thing.
All right, here we go. You're up.
All right, thank you. So a couple weeks ago, I believe it was June 11th, I went to St. Bees, and as some of you may be aware, that this particular location has been quite a point of interest within very niche groups of the flat Earth debate, specifically with Anthony Riley, Nathan Oakley, and Ranty Flat Earth. They have been all over this location in the sense that they've been paying a lot of attention to it, but not literally traversing around it very much, which is the point I was there. Basically, I had the opportunity to go to the UK, and basically I thought, well, I'm near St. Bees, and it's been a point of contention for a lot of flat earthers, especially because if you don't already know the story, basically, Nathan, Riley, and Ranty, they went to St. Bees and they took some pictures of the distant Isle of Man. And they went on for quite a while claiming you can see Ireland, you can see Scotland, you can see et cetera, yada, yada, in the images, which were all eventually debunked and, set straight. But even then, it's still something of a hot topic. And they've been discussing this one location and the observations associated with it now for months on end, and even to the point where even flat earthers are getting tired of it. So anyway, I thought, oh well, you can't let flat earthers have all the fun on this. So I decided that I wanted to go to St. Bees, and I wanted to do something that they hadn't, which is first of all I wanted to try to do something far more scientifically proper, in the sense that I wanted to take more pictures, more video, and and unlike them, actually do several observations from varied locations and observation points. Now, you've been looking at my screen for a while here, and this is the coast at St. Bees. I'm not sure if you can you see my mouse actually?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Well, anyway, so I first started my observations for the day here, just at the edge of the beach. And basically, I just took that time to just look around, get my bearings, and look where stuff was. Particularly, I was looking for the Isle of Man to see exactly where it was. Unfortunately, it was very cloudy earlier in the day when I got there, so it was I couldn't see the Isle of Man. It was just completely clouded over. I couldn't see it at all. In fact, the only thing I could see were some far distant mountains that were attached to to England further to the south, and some random buoys which I haven't identified. So, unfortunately, nothing at that point. Nothing yet. And to get a big to get an idea of what it looked like, it looked something basically like this. As you can see, I got there at around noon. So, as you can see, the Earth is very clearly flat in this image because, of course, it is. But to give some idea of the conditions, you can see the general haze and stuff that I'm working with, and the sun isn't out, and it's just very generally poor to work with. So, again, I do want to stress that the Earth is flat, and that it's flat. And really, I think we can just work from there. So, later on, I decided that I wanted to try my luck at a slightly higher observation point. So I basically worked my way up to this location here, which is a small point along this path here, which goes to St. Bees Head, which is a point further to the a bit further to the north with a lighthouse on it and such. But I stopped here at this observation point. Now it's at an elevation of about 85 meters or so, which is pretty high. It's one of the highest points in the area. And to give some idea of reference, when Anthony Riley took his images of the Isle of Man from St. Bees, he was doing it from this observation point here, which is at about, I forget what it is in meters, but it's about 120 feet or so. So this is, if I remember my conversion correctly, this is about twice as high. So take that for what you will. And when I was at this point, I eventually, with the help of some locals actually, managed to find the Isle of Man. Eventually, I couldn't see it, but it took some help from people pointing and saying, oh, look, there's the Isle of Man. And I basically frantically spun around and said, wait, where is it? Where is it? I've been looking for an hour. Where is it? And there it was. Now, still, the conditions were pretty poor. I could just make out the silhouette of the Isle of Man, and even then I still couldn't really see towards the edges. So the main focus of my observation became the two highest peaks on the island, which are North Barul and Snaefell Mountains. So they became the focus of my observation, as they were pretty much one of the few things I could see. So from that point, that high elevation. Oh, and for reference, this is what the rest of the Isle of Man, the St. Bees coast looked like. And as you can see, this is just the general coastline area, and then over here are some of those distant mountains I was referring to. And I believe it's here is where Anthony's observation point was. And my original point where I stopped to just look around to get my bearings was about here. Sai, did you have something?
I did not, in fact.
Oh, you were just... Okay, never mind. I thought I heard you say something. Anyway, so this was... Once I eventually got to the spot, this was my setup. I basically got to a small rock that was just there. I set up my camera with my truth detector mounted firmly on top, as well as a backpack and my camera bag. And all set up on this tripod here. So this was the setup, and how I did almost all of my observation was centered around this setup I had here. I also use my phone and its theodolite app to take several images looking for azimuths and elevations. But I knew that obviously it's not exactly a totally reliable instrument, so I didn't really rely on it too heavily. And I also didn't put too much weight into it, and I'm not going to put too much weight into it into my later analysis. And if you look up here, there's some sheep, which is just kind of nice. Now, from that high observation point, this is an idea of what I could see. So you have the Isle of Man there in the distance, and this is the P900 has particular kinds of filters that you can put on it. I basically put on a slightly higher contrast and filter, which also turns down the exposure slightly and turns up the contrast slightly, which basically allows you to make out certain greater detail. It's meant for actually taking pictures of the moon, but I found that it was also very useful to this because in reality, the sky was much more washed out than you see in this image, and the ocean was less blue. but generally this actually helped, so I could actually see I could actually see something.
Okay, Hillel, real
So
quick, it's coming through kind of faint on my screen. Is there any way you could use your mouse to trace over the silhouetted image, just so
Sure thing. And believe me,
everyone
it's
has
faint on my screen too. So it kind of goes off. It's over to this edges. It's kind of hard to see, but basically it follows this line where it goes up and follows this gentle contour.
The general kind of light blue silhouette in there.
Yeah, it's the lighter blue, the slightly darker coloration against the slightly lighter sky.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's still quite a lot of mist and haze around, which made the observation kind of difficult. You can see it's just clouds and stuff, but this was the main focus of the observation point in this area.
Very difficult photographic opportunities.
Yeah, but I was just I was grateful that I could see anything at all, because I would have been very disappointed if I went all the way, a quarter way around the world just to get a overcast sky. So I was grateful I was seeing anything at all. And the sun has actually come out by this time, and it is getting, the conditions are slightly and slowly getting better, but slowly. So the main focus was these two mountains here, the highest points on the Isle of Man. Here, I'll just put my cursor between them. So the one on the left is Snaefell Mountain. It is the highest mountain on the island. It is 621 meters tall, so it's up there. And the one on the right is Barul. It is another mountain, which is slightly more pointy, but slightly shorter than Snaefell. So this is just an example of one of the images that I brought back. This is actually one of the better ones, because certain other ones were editions weren't quite as good. But here you can see much better actually. This is a slightly zoomed in version of that one from before. It's not the same image. It's just it's more zoomed on the scene than the other one. So you can see there my cursor. This is Snaefell Mountain, which again is a slightly darker blue against a slightly lighter sky. And then here we get to North Barul, which then goes off in this direction. And so this is an example of the kinds of pictures that I got back, mainly from this high observation point. Like I said, unlike Anthony's pictures, which to their credit are slightly better than these, because this I basically only got the silhouette, whereas he was able to make out, though we couldn't identify them, he was able to make out actual like houses and other structures and other things on the actual island itself, whereas I was just getting a rather fuzzy silhouette. But even then, I'm again grateful that I got anything back at all.
Well, especially through mist that dense. I mean, mist and fog are so difficult to take decent photos through. Being able to grab the silhouettes the way that you did, hats off to you, Hill. Great job.
Thanks. It was I had to actually give a lot of credit to the P900, because it was actually making it out slightly better than I could, especially because of the zoom and the particular filter of the increasing contrast. It made it especially clearer. Whereas it was much more difficult to make out with my eye. I also had I did also have my phone camera, of course, and also I did bring a pair of binoculars, which did help.
Nice.
Yeah. Now this is actually a short video that I took. Unfortunately, it comes through rather choppily, and I couldn't get it to size strike in time. But in essence, I'll just quickly flip through it. In essence, what I do is, as you can see here, I basically take my phone camera and I put my binoculars up to it to get a more telescopic view to the island without having to use my camera for it. So kind of confirmation, just in case people wanted to say CGI. I could, first of all, I just thought this would be cool, and also as a kind of independent confirmation of different devices with different focal lengths giving back the same image, even though at a slightly reduced size, because the magnification isn't quite as great. But in essence, this is the image that my phone would return by itself without the binoculars. As you can see, the Isle of Man is almost invisible, especially because of the haze. There's no increased contrast or brightness or anything. This is basically just what it looked like. And as you can see, it's very difficult. You can just see the Isle of Man here with the, I'll follow again, this is the contour. And it kind of just fades off into the clouds. So this is generally what I was working with. I don't know how well that's coming through. But yeah. And then, so what I did in this short clip is I basically, as you can see, I take my binoculars and put them up to the phone. And this is the view I got back. Oh, again, this probably isn't coming through very well. But again, you can just about make out the contour of the island here.
Yeah, you can see the silhouetting of much. It's still light, but you can actually see the silhouetting much better than you could with just the phone image itself.
Yeah.
And it's always difficult holding your... I've done that a lot with astrophotography where I had no plans on doing any photographing. And then you just get a break in the clouds. It's like, oh my gosh. So you stick your cell phone up to an eyepiece, and I hope it works.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising how well cell phone cameras can adjust very quickly to the that sort of a
and speaking of that adjustment, here's a moment in which the camera slightly got to adjust better to what it was looking at, and you can see the contour is slightly clearer here than it was before.
Indeed.
But yeah, so I'll just, they don't need to see more of it. So actually, Sidestrike. Anyway, I'll just. Long story short, I was up there for probably at that high observation point for probably about an hour or so. I think it might have been actually 2 hours. Basically, I just went, I took video, took pictures, and using my Theodolite app on my phone especially, and also the Compass app, I basically took measurements of bearing and elevation, although I know reliable because it is just a phone. And basically, what I was trying to do was to capture as much of the island. Here, I'll go back to it so you can... Basically, what I was trying to do was I was trying to capture this kind of thing as much as possible. And the reason for this was so I could later compare that to the footage which I would get from the low observation point. And this is especially one of the reasons I wanted to do this particular observation was because when the flat earthers conducted this, they first conducted a single observation at a single location at one time, and then it took them weeks and weeks and weeks to come back to St. Bees and try the same observation, but from a different height above sea level. So basically, they just came back with a picture, and then there was a lot of debating about, this much should be hidden, et cetera, et cetera. But what I wanted to do was in one day, was to capture the Isle of Man at one elevation, and then go and capture at another, and then have the two to compare. I mean, taking one picture by itself is fine. You can analyze that. But having another picture to compare that against from a different elevation or in a different location, I thought was really what I was going for here. So with that, actually, Sidestrike, would you mind showing that video, the one I have now?
No problem. Let me
okay.
Get over to that screen.
And as a bit of context, basically, this was once I got down to the low observation point. Now, this was just basically, I basically went, I like an idiot decided, I'm just going to walk basically into the water to do this, because something else that was very annoying was that when the flat earthers eventually got to doing their observation at a low point, they did it from very high up the beach at low tide. And Britain has very tidal water, so the water can go really far out, going very far down, if you take my meaning.
Yeah, aren't the British Isles susceptible to like the third largest decreases and increases in sea level due to the tides? I know. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Newfoundland holds the record, which is just unbelievable. But I thought the British Isles were
if you look at the picture
second or
I have now
third.
as a kind of example. Yeah,
wait.
As an example, the water when I got there at high tide is about up to here. These wooden pier-like things are about half underwater, or they're not half underwater, but like if you take my meaning, the water cuts through halfway up them.
They're wet.
So it goes about up to this this slight coastline here, and by low tide, the tide recedes all the way out to here or so to make a kind of gentle curve in this direction. So all of this in here becomes new beachfront. And something that annoyed me a little bit was that when the flat earthers went to make this low observation, the tide was all the way out here, but they did their observation point from somewhere in here. So there was some debate about exactly what the height above sea level would be, because obviously the water has gone quite a distance away, but we're not quite sure how far down it would go, like how far down the tide would actually recede to actually change the observer's height above sea level.
Oh,
So what I did was to try to amend that. I decided, you know what, I don't want any debate about what the height is above sea level. So basically, how do you do that? You go into the sea. So I decided, basically, I'm going to take my tripod, and I decided I'm just going to put it literally in the water. So basically, if you see here, this isn't exactly when I did it, but if you, basically, I would be around here, such that my tripod is actually, and I, by the way, are basically just, they don't actually crash, but basically after the waves settle into the, after the waves come down, they crash, and then they settle out a bit. I was basically just in that settling out area, such that there be as little debate as possible about exactly what the height above sea level would be. So I wanted to try to design this observation to bring back, first of all, multiple observation points, but also so that there would be as little debate as possible about certain fundamental things, such as observer height and location, which is why I took extra steps to confirm exact GPS locations, observer locations, times, and heights above sea level, because I didn't want any of that to be in dispute, because that really, I think, it's important. But if you start, then eventually you'll start debating about all of that instead of what the observation actually is, which I didn't want any of that.
Understandable.
Yes, documentation, thorough documentation is key to all this kind of thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, because, and again, when the flat earthers did this observation, for a good few weeks, the debate was about, exactly what the observer height was, or even about what time it was, what the position was, all of this nonsense, which, like I said, is still very important. It's in fact, it's crucial to how you're going to analyze the observation itself. But like I said, eventually it got to the point where the entire debate was about those parameters and not about what the observation actually was. So I just wanted to try to cut straight past all that, to get straight to the, okay, this is what the observation is, so that there was none of that muddying of the waters about those exact specifications and parameters going in, because I would have documented them already.
Okay. When I'm doing the
And
video,
I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to show this video.
Sure, happy to. Now, will there be stop points, or are you just going to let it play?
Oh, you can just let it play, but as a quick preface, I should just say that I tried to do this video once, and then I think I accidentally pressed the button to turn it off. So I do the whole "this is where I am" thing a bit more hurriedly, because because I already did it, and this is my second attempt. But
okay,
yeah, I messed up a little bit. But generally, you just let it play out. This is basically me documenting my setup and my location, establishing my location and observer heights at the low observation point.
All right. Well, let me get us over to that screen, and we shall get started with that. And I'm looking forward to it. Here we go. How's the volume level, by the way? Am I to expect any surprises?
I don't think so.
All right. Good.
Unless I surprise myself.
All right. Here we go. Let me know if you do need it to stop to address a certain point. Just tell me. I got the player up. Here we go.
Sure thing. So this thing either cut out or
I lied. I do that every once in a while. Make stuff up. Oh, you sent it. It's a move file. My lord. There we go.
So this thing either cut out or I turned it off like an idiot. So again, for reference, move forward a little bit. Camera literally in the water. So he is going to be actually here is going to be my final spot. So, height above sea level is height of the tripod. As you can see, it's actually in the waves. The more down I can get. So height above sea level is height of tripod, plus because the sea's going to recede a little bit, I'm going to give it about half a foot. So height of tripod plus half a foot. I'll measure the tripod later. Anyway, for reference, this is where I am.
Okay.
And I apologize for the wind. It plagued me throughout the entire observation.
When it
I don't
first
think
started,
you have to apologize for wind, Hillel.
Yeah.
my first
Mainly
thought
for
was
the,
that while you
I
were,
suppose more I'm just apologizing for the effect of the wind on the audio.
I mistakenly assumed when you started making the video you were receiving an obscene phone call at the same time. Perhaps not, but
Perhaps not.
Okay, back to you.
So, as I also state, something I tried to do was something I did a little bit, probably about 5 minutes or so. I decided to try to, I kind of chased the tide out a little bit because as it was receding, I wanted first of all the video to demonstrate, and also my tripod to actually be, actually in the water. So as the tide kept receding out, even though it wasn't going down very far, I kind of had to chase it a few times. I probably changed my position about 4 times. I never took any pictures. It was mainly just me trying to set up. And I'm actually quite glad I didn't, because one of the times the wind actually blew my tripod over and it ended up in the water. So I'm quite glad my P900 wasn't on it at that moment.
Indeed.
So basically, as I say, then I choose a final spot for the observation to be at, and that's the location I choose to just set down. And if you actually change back to my screen for a moment.
All right. Oh, and you have a James Collins asks, can anyone actually tell me what's going on in the video? Would you like to give Mr. Collins a little more detail?
Basically, sure thing. I'm basically just establishing my position and location for what I'm calling the low observation point. So basically, I'm doing a man from St. Bees, and I'm doing it from basically as low on the beach as I can possibly get without being underwater. So this video is basically just me saying, okay, I'm establishing it. This is my location. And, panning around, saying, okay, this is where I am. Showing this is the camera's height above sea level. It's literally just the height of the tripod plus a little bit because the tide's going to recede. So it's just me trying to establish those facts and parameters that I was talking about earlier, saying, okay, this is where I am. This is the camera height, and that sort of thing.
Okay. Very good. So back to the Hangout screen then. There we go. You may share at will.
Ooh. Can you see this?
Indeed.
Okay. So this is just a quick picture I took before I zoomed in on the Isle of Man. As you can see, the conditions are better than before, but there's still quite a lot of haze on the horizon. I can't even see. I know the Isle of Man is in this picture, but I actually can't see it. That's kind of how the conditions were at the time. But as you can see, also there's the tide. It's receded slightly since I took the video, but still, the camera is still, and the tripod is still very much as close to the water as I could get without constantly having to chase it out. So this is one of the pictures I actually took when I got down there, and I zoomed in the camera a little bit. Now again, as you can see, it's actually, you can probably see it much clearer because, like I said, the haze did slightly lift. But as you can see, here's the contour where it follows up to Snæfell Mountain, down up to whatever this mountain's called, and then up to North Barul, which is here, and then follows the contour out. And here's the water all beneath me, etc. And basically, this is the kind of thing I was really looking for in this observation. Basically, a shot framed from above with these two mountains, and then from below with these two mountains, which I could compare later. Now, these are not the only pictures I took. This is just some of the better ones, which I decided to show. And as you can see, there's the water all, which is, by the way, there. As you can see with this picture, the waves are absurdly small, if you can even call them waves. They're probably not more than a couple inches high. So, and this is a statement mainly for the flat earthers out there. The waves were not cresting higher than me, thus obscuring my view of the mountain. That's simply not the case. Just throwing that out there.
A good point. Those do not appear to be taller than you.
Yeah, I think we can also agree that from the high observation point, there were also no waves in my way which were blocking my view. Which, if there were, we should probably call the Coast Guard, because, well, England has a tsunami on its hands. But generally, this is the kind of wait, let me check. What's the next? Oh, and this is just a slightly more zoomed out image of the same thing. Again, as you can see, all the waves are very far below me. But did I have anything else? I think this is basically the pictures which I had prepared, basically showing this is what I was looking for. There's also several which I took with my phone, which are show measurements of altitude and azimuth, but I'm not relying on them too heavily for analysis because, of course, it's quite easy for those to be off by quite a bit. So now I have all my, obviously I'm back, I have all my pictures, I have the other footage I've taken, and I'll talk a little bit about the way I'm going to analyze this. So one thing especially I'm going to be looking for is, or the way I'm going to be analyzing these is making predictions. So basically, if the globe Earth model is correct, there are certain predictions that should come out of this kind of observation. Target at some distance of some height, etc. So basically saying, okay, so if the globe Earth is true, what would this observation look like? And then if the flat Earth was true, what would this observation look like? And continuing on from there. And then using those predictions, I'm going to be comparing them to the actual images which I got back. And then obviously from there, I'll be able to decisively say, okay, this model conforms, and this model and its predictions conform to the actual pictures and to reality. So therefore, that model is more likely true. And that's the manner in which I'll be analyzing them. The main way I'm doing right now is with a series of several images, which I didn't show, but I'm working with them, and they're super secret. But basically comparing two images which are at the exact same focal length, which is the full optical zoom of the P900, and then using that, I can draw angles inside of the image, saying, okay, I know the field of view of the P900 at full optical zoom is, say, a degree, and then basically drawing lines inside of there saying, okay, then I know this far is this many degrees, this far is this many degrees, and basically they're directly measuring the angular size of the Isle of Man. And then from there, I'll be making predictions from the globe Earth and the flat Earth to see what those, what the angular size should be under each of those models, and then comparing them to the ones which I derived from the image. And that's one of the kinds of analyses which I'll be doing. Which, as it stands, I believe that most of I haven't finished, but most of my analyses seem to be focusing more around things like angles rather than distances, like saying, okay, this much is obscured as a particular value, because that's rather hard to check because, like I said, I only have the silhouettes to work with. So without certain terrain features and stuff like that, it's harder to work with to find exactly as a value what is obscured. So it's slightly easier to work with angles because obviously it's going to be much easier to do that with a silhouette than distances. And so I guess that's really me done. Do you guys have any questions or anything, or does the audience have any questions? Because I think that's pretty much everything I want to cover.
I didn't see any questions for you scroll by. If anybody does have any questions, just put a at SciStrike in it just so I see the highlighted thing and don't miss it because it's scrolling by so fast. Anyway.
Yes, please.
Hill, now this is the arguments you're going to be making with your evidence are for the. I don't want to call them serious flat Earth arguments. I just can't seem to form. It was painful to form those words, but the more complicated, let's say, flat Earth arguments.
My arguments are mainly going to be, dare I say it, more intellectual flat earthers.
There you go. I'll bet that. Okay, good. Go get a drink. Wash your mouth out.
They're going to be. I'm going to be dealing with slightly more complicated things like how to calculate the angular size of some target over a spherical Earth and over a flat Earth, and certain things like that, and then using those to make predictions from which I can compare to images. So it kind of gets a little bit complicated.
Okay.
But I think I'm thinking and I'm really hoping that most people will basically be able to follow the basic train of logic of the globe Earth makes a prediction, the flat Earth makes a prediction, and one of those I haven't actually finished, but so one of those is going to be closer to the observation, and basically hoping that people can at the very least follow that line of reasoning. And I'm really looking forward to what when I finish and what I eventually put out. I've gotten a lot of really awesome feedback. Not only, first of all, thank you from you two. I've gotten some really cool feedback, and obviously from the audience. I believe even I've gotten some relatively positive feedback from flat earthers, including Anthony Riley himself, Nathan Oakley. Sort of, he's tough when it comes to getting praise on anything that is not expressly flat Earth, but I've also gotten approval from people like Red and Sean and Geo and people like that. So I really do appreciate all this really great encouragement. And and also I don't want to forget also Miles Davis, who also he went out to St. Bees quite a while ago, and I actually do need to remember to try to, in my analysis, compare some of that's something I forgot to mention. In my analysis, I'm also going to be comparing several other things from what other people at St. Bees have gotten. For example, I'm not just going to be looking at my own material. I'm going to be comparing it to what Anthony got when he was there and when Miles Davis got when he was there, and feeding that into the larger scope of the overall analysis.
Okay. What I was trying
really
to
do appreciate all the positive feedback I've gotten from all y'all.
You did a lot of work, and
it's been.
I mean, people rarely go. I mean, yes, effort is always a good thing. We love seeing that. Like Andy said before, it's a little bit harder to go out and do science than to just sit on the couch or whatever. But this is above and beyond heading off to other continents. But the one point I was gonna make, and it's like I mentioned, you're going to be addressing the claims that have some. Well, some math involved, some angles, things like that. One of the pictures you showed, however, will serve to refute, just talking about it now, I wouldn't bother talking about it again because it's a silly claim to begin with. You've seen the meme where there's the moon over the ocean at night and there's a straight line, and there's that claim that on a flat Earth you'd get the line, and on a curved thing you just get bullshit. Anyway, can you go back to the picture where you showed the little where it had the little ripples on the beach?
Oh, this one?
Yeah, it's just relaxing. I just wanted to see it to relax, no other reason.
Okay.
Anyway, no, this one showing these anyone who presents, and again, it's a silly claim they make with that meme, but they keep repeating it. Looking at this, one can clearly see that in between these minor wave crests, there is a trough, and this trough presents many reflective angles. In the daytime, since it's illuminated by, everywhere, because of light scattering and all that sort of thing, it looks like this. If there were only one...
I'll give you one guess as to where the sun is in this image.
Yeah. If there's only one light source that's not too bright to illuminate, our atmosphere, basically, and scatter light all over the place, like the moon, for example, each standing in a line, looking over the ocean at the moon, you would get a line moving straight towards you because each incoming angle would have a corresponding reflective surface on the inside of that trough. So that's just, you're going to do all the complicated stuff, but you probably didn't even think about it.
Well,
you have some evidence
Actually,
to debunk the
speaking
moon
of
too.
the moon and the sun, something I'm really hoping for, that I was hoping would happen on this day, I was really hoping that the sun or the moon would actually set into the Isle of Man as
Mhm.
viewed from St. Bees, because that would actually present a ton of really great opportunities. One, it would really create a very defined silhouette for the Isle of Man. If for example, the sun or the moon happened to set them, that would create a very clear, defined silhouette, which would make a very nice image. Also, not to mention pretty.
Mhm.
And also, something else that would be very nice is that if you record the exact time that it happens and the exact observer, you can use something very simple like moon calc, for example, to get very exact azimuth and elevation degrees,
Mm.
which really helps with that kind of accuracy of, okay, I know exactly which direction I'm looking. But unfortunately, that neither the sun nor the moon set into the Isle of Man on this particular day I was there, which, as you can see, is June 11th.
Mm.
So it was something I was hoping for, but unfortunately, it did not happen. Although then again, Anthony. This is, I guess, suppose more an invitation to Anthony or Ranty, Ethan. If they ever go out there, this is something to observe. Like I said, it's not only pretty; it's something practical that you can use to get really good bearings, figuratively and literally, of where you're looking. So I seriously just basically whatever the observation can give you, you better take it, because it could be useful. You never know what you could need or use.
Agreed. All right.
Were there any questions from you guys or from the audience?
I saw
None
none
from
scroll
me in
by,
particular.
and I'm good. Nice presentation. Nice,
Any
nice images.
comments, questions, or concerns?
Well, for comments, I'm kind of looking forward to your detailed. After this little teaser, I'm kind of looking forward to your detailed analysis.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This should be pretty good.
The problem is that I usually I actually, a lot of people don't know this, and again, to shill myself and toot my own horn, I do these kinds of analysis stuff relatively regularly with some of the footage that I see regarding flat Earth stuff. I just never publish it because, frankly, for some reason, in some cases, I don't need to, but it just, this kind of analysis of footage of not just my own but of other people's stuff, I find it fun and it's interesting, and it's part of the reason that I do. Now, I also want to clarify, this didn't influence my observation one bit, but it's the analyses I have done before has one of the huge things which has pushed me to is round, because the analyses I have done, even though other people haven't seen them, the analyses that I have done have really done, I think, a really good job of showing that the globe Earth model, it works. It makes predictions which are true, or that they come true, and it does a good job of presenting what reality is. So, and I also want, like I said, that the beliefs I already hold about the shape of the Earth did not factor into this observation. I went to a high elevation, took pictures. There's no globe Earth or flat Earth in there anywhere. It's just, you don't need to your preconceptions about something or your beliefs about kind of experiment going in doesn't mean it's going to influence the way you perform it or the data you get back, or in my case, the images you get back. And I do really want to stress that just because a person has a conception about the shape of the Earth or anything like that going into an observation like this, that doesn't get that answer coming back. Now, I'm going to be honest. I haven't finished my analyses yet. I here in 2 weeks and say, hey guys, by the way, these pictures I've taken and stuff, they show the Earth is flat. Now, I very much doubt that will happen, but it's always a possibility. And even when doing this observation, I was thinking, okay, there's a possibility that this will show that it's flat, and then, well, first of all, at the very least, I'll be able to do a better job presenting it and proving it than almost any flat earther I've ever seen. Because whatever conclusion they come back with, they'll be well researched, well thought out, and then the conclusions will be drawn from those from that research and from those pictures, And I won't just make stuff up or have to cut corners. And believe me, if I have a problem, if I don't know anything or I don't know how to do something, I can always go to you guys or anyone else. So this isn't thing about this isn't. I did not go out to prove that the Earth is a sphere. I went out to take, and whatever those pictures come back as in the analysis, that's what they come back as. I didn't go out to prove the Earth's round. I went out to I guess I went out to prove that you can see the Isle of Man from St. Bees, and that's about it. And that you can take pictures of it. I went out to take pictures, not to prove something.
Understand, and I like what you said about if the evidence you gathered points to a flat Earth, then so be it. That goes well with the follow the evidence wherever it leads, as opposed to no, this is my position. I will cherry pick things to support that. So. Not surprising to hear from you, but it was good to hear you say it.
Definitely.
So, do you guys have any particular questions or comments, or does the audience have any particular questions or comments? I can't check right now.
I've been looking. I did not see any specific questions for you from the audience. I would like to know, how was the beer over there?
I'm guessing warm.
It was all right, actually.
All right, then.
It was all right. But only all right.
All right, very good. Should have gone across.
Now, I also want to clarify, I have any before doing this observation.
That's good.
And that I do want to clarify, nothing before.
Okay, very good.
I'll leave it at that.
I would not have been able to resist the temptation to head over the water to Belgium, because that's the place for beers. Oh my.
Maybe next time.
Indeed.
Oh, I did also promise GeoStreamer that the next time I go I travel to Europe, I'm gonna have to stop by and with and visit him. So I look forward. So basically, after that happens, I look forward to seeing you a week later and telling you, hey, by the way, I don't remember what happened in the last week.
Yeah.
Please fill me in. So. Maybe I'll stop by Belgium on the way back.
Oh, wait, not questions for you, but there was a comment for you. Let me scroll back up to it. Oh yeah, it was from Brian. Brian suggests that next time you're in any windy location like that, take one of the pads from the headphone and stick it over the mic, and then that should work fine to diminish the wind noise.
Oh, maybe. Although here again, I have terrible speakers and a terrible mic, so I don't know. Maybe two wrongs make a right, but
all right. Well,
technically, though, 3 lefts make a right. Always remember that.
I will keep that in mind. Actually, I've already forgotten. Well,
but actually, I also want to clarify something. This observation, I had a lot of fun doing it. It took. As you can see by the time, it took about 5. This was not actually the last time. So this thing took like 5 hours to do, and that's just the taking pictures part, not including getting. But it was genuinely fun. Obviously, peering out into the distance to see a slightly darker smudge against a slightly less dark smudge of the sky, but it was fun to go out and take these pictures and stuff. I enjoyed it. I could have obviously I actually had a lot of stuff planned going into this, which some of which I didn't get to do. Like something I wanted. I'm not sure if I ever discussed this, but something I wanted to do was to make a manual theodolite, which didn't rely on my phone, sort of thing. But unfortunately, because I was kind of really excited that because at some one point it wasn't sunny, because I was going to use the sun's shadow to make a bearing sort of thing. I basically printed out a 360-degree compass and was going to use a vertical stick and the sun, knowing its azimuth, to then be able to look at objects at other bearings from there. And unfortunately, because the sun was now at one point, I basically just abandoned that. It came out later, but I'd basically forgotten about that point. And I also said this, like I said, this observation was fun, but this was also not the only proof which I have. There's one thing which I'm working on. Basically, I wasn't just at St. Bees. I kind of went up and down the coast a little bit, and at one point, I had a really cool observation which I wasn't expecting to see. With a series of wind farms off in the distance, and I'm working to analyze that too, which is gonna be difficult, especially because I'm gonna need to identify each individual wind turbine, which is going to be just fun, just so much fun, and basically come back with that analysis as well. So, but this Isle of Man thing comes first. So I just want to let you guys know that I have tons of stuff brewing, and no video editor. So, so this is going to be a wild ride for all of us.
No, all right. Well, looking forward to that. And
yeah.
Hey, presented enough today that's enough of a teaser that I can't wait to see what you come out with. All right. Well, cool.
Very awesome, Hill.
Indeed.
Sounds like it was an absolute blast of a trip. It really would be a lot of fun to do one of those. It's always tough, with me being in Colorado, it's next to impossible to go and do a lot of these, water this, water that, because I go up to 14,000 feet and I look out into the distance. It's a little different.
Yeah.
Sea level, 14,000 feet. Can't do a lot of the same type stuff. So I generally stick to looking at the stars, or if I do happen to remember to bring one of the precision straight edges from work all the way up to the top of a mountain, and I can show things in another way, but everyone thinks that's bull anyways, so.
Well, actually, hey, can you guys keep your secret? Can you guys keep a secret? I want this just to be between us. No one else can know, okay?
You'll have to say it quiet, though, so nobody hears. Go ahead, Hill.
Yeah. Actually, this is only the second long-distance observation which I've ever over water. Shit, I messed this up. This is hard to say. This is the second look at a target over a long distance over water observation which I've ever done.
Okay.
So that's why this one reason this was really exciting to do, because I've never really done anything quite like this before. The first time I did this must have been when I first got into flat Earth, something like 3 years ago. I was on a boat. You know that there's the boats over the horizon observation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I basically tried to do that, except from a boat, looking at the land slowly disappearing.
Aha.
And so I tried to, except I didn't record my observation height very well, and not to mention that the distance that I traveled was very minimal. It's debatable whether the land, the distance, did anything really, because that's over, for the globe Earth predictions and the flat Earth predictions, basically nothing happened, because it was just a relatively short distance. So this was, aside from stuff like astronomy-based stuff, which has been really fun to do as well, like what you said, Andy, it's like some of that stuff I actually think that's a lot more. Some of that's also really fun because I'm really into astronomy, and something I like about that is that the sky, obviously depending on your location, the sky, the exact specifics are, they're changed slightly based on location, but the sky is available to everyone. Everyone can see the sun, everyone can see the moon. That's very easy to access, no matter if you're landlocked or on an island somewhere. It's
right.
This basically, that's why I like the kind of observations, because anybody can do it. Anybody can repeat it. You don't have to go to a random beach in another country to perform that kind of to repeat that kind of experiment.
Indeed, and I know it seems kind of out of place sometimes, but a lot of the times with doing overland experiments, when it comes to the generalized shape of where it is that you happen to be, dry land can be so misleading sometimes. You can be over a region of land that, yes, is actually pretty darn flat. That doesn't speak for the whole of the planet, though. And I know that's why water is most oftentimes used, but even approaching beaches or small lakes, and I'm referring to a small lake being something around 10 to 12 miles in width. It's compared to inland seas like the Great Lakes or the Black Sea, Caspian Sea, things of that nature.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult sometimes, especially I've noticed a lot of the flat earthers going and doing these types of experiments in what used to be very heavily glaciated areas, and the weight of that much ice on the Earth itself can actually kind of squish it. and it gets a little flatter than normal, so it doesn't follow a mean curve.
Yeah. Also, the other thing that I, these kinds of observations that I basically was just doing is that I don't like so much is that you get into all this debate about, what happens at the horizon. You've got all these atmospheric effects, you've got mirages, you've got for flat earthers, basically you've got perspective, convergence points, all this kind of stuff. Whereas, when you get away from the horizon into the upper echelons of the sky, it a lot of that stuff basically goes away and it doesn't get quite as muddy. So because the
Indeed.
talk about the horizon is a contentious point within the flat Earth debate. So I obviously you go at again that point goes away and you can just leave that behind and like I said, focus on the actual observation rather the specifics of okay, what exactly happens at the horizon. Let's categorize every single atmospheric effect and perspective and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
indeed. Well, that's a very, very, very interesting presentation.
absolutely. I'm very glad that you joined us today, Hill.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
And Andy, do you have some news about your radio telescope project? You got stuff and things, did you not?
I did get stuff and things, and I was an idiot and forgot to get one of the most basic, low-cost components that I actually required. So I did get my SDR in. I have my dish set up with my single LNB, and I'm very ecstatic to get everything plugged in as soon as I get the 50 ohm coax adapter so that I can plug my dish into my SDR, because I ignored that fact. But it's okay. It's still, the SDR itself is actually from previous episodes with getting into this. I was running with the SDR Play, the RSP2, and it's proving even without having any sort of hookup, it is actually proving to be just on its own, bare bones, naked, a very powerful receiver. And the software is it's going to take me much longer than I anticipated to actually learn a lot of what's going on with this. To give you an idea real quick, I'm going to try and present a window here real fast of just one of the... Yeah, so this is the SP2 window. Hopefully it comes through. And I know it's a little weird. I've basically been listening to a heartbeat for the last short while, but this is one of the gain windows, and these I'm still really new to a lot of things with radio, so I'm not going to say that I understand most of this. I really don't, but it is a lot of fun. I get to directly manipulate everything. It's just, and these changes in the spikes on the side over here, those are due to me. I'm doing that. So that's nothing in the frequency itself changing, but I have no idea what I've been listening to. I just know that it's consistent, it's there, and as long as I stay around, what in the world am I frequency-wise? I'm taking in a digital signal at 10 megahertz, and oh man, there's more than I actually know here. There really is. I'm not a radio guy. I'm just getting into this, but
you will be.
yeah. I see myself very slowly becoming a radio guy here pretty quick. I might be
Andy.
getting my ham
word is
operator's
yet.
license here pretty soon.
Andy, you're not a radio guy yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see, the good thing about the software that comes with that piece of magic hardware you bought is I believe it can do in one step inside the program what I had to do with 2 programs and a virtual audio cable, which when you're done, I'll get into that. But I believe you can have it output the peaks at whatever you set the bandwidth for. At up around 2 gigahertz, you probably make it, I don't know, 2-3 megahertz, something like that. but it'll give you I believe it will output the peak readings that you can then graph after all in one step, where I have to do it in 2 steps, or actually 3, considering the virtual audio cables. So I am a little jealous of the cool technology you got. I got.
I believe so. That was kind of the goal. So part of the reason why I chose this one was not because of any knowledge that I have of radio in any way, shape, or form. It was actually a recommendation from the pilot that I used to fly with when I was working on my pilot's license. He's a big time ham operator and enthusiast, and I was talking to him about it because you do that sort of thing, and he suggested this SDR in particular due to its capabilities and what he thought I was looking for. So, you know, it wasn't just a random buy; it was a recommendation, and it is, at this point in time, it is beyond my knowledge set for radio, but I think that's going to help allow me to learn a lot more in a small packet of time that I have available.
Yeah,
isn't it amazing really looking forward to it.
Isn't it amazing how quickly we learn new things when it's something that interests us like this?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Andy, by the way, I'm not what this thing you're picking up. I'm not sure what it is. I honestly don't. But I'm not saying it's aliens.
but it's aliens.
When you're just sitting here and listening to it, and I'm not entirely sure what these horizontal spikes actually represent. Again, I don't know enough about the software. I'm sure that there's some viewers that would easily be able to tell me exactly what it is that I'm viewing here.
I'm one of those.
But, well, yeah. I'm not sure what they are, but these pulses have been changing throughout the course of the last hour, and I have no idea what I'm listening to. And since there's no antenna plugged in, it has to be something that is either local or very, very high strength. I'm assuming it's something local. Maybe even it's coming out of my own computer. It might even, hell, I don't know. This might be my freaking Wi-Fi. My router's sitting about 4 feet away from me.
There's also a possibility that it's what some radio folks call birdies in a receiver, which is a birdie is a happy term for a just a mixing from the internal oscillators in the device to where it produces a signal inside the receiver, independent of getting anything in from the antenna lead, which is also a possibility.
It very well could be. Like I say, I am very new to this. I'm really excited about plugging the dish in and running the basic look at the ground, look at the sun, look at the ground, look at the sun. I think that's going to be awesome because,
yeah,
like I say, I have actually been listening to this signal the entire. I've had the volume on real low so it doesn't boop 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 over you guys.
Yeah.
So that's all it says. It just sounds like Morse code, of course. But
wait a minute. Can you?
I get to listen to the sun as soon as I get this one little 50 ohm adapter.
Yeah. Actually, can I just throw something? I have 3 things. First of all, I just want to say each of the lines there are flat. So
it's not only
the
flat
universe
Earth,
is flat.
Flat universe.
That's proof right there.
There you go.
If the universe is flat, that means the Earth is flat. The other thing is that as another small plug for myself, I should be getting my own solar filter for my P900. Thank you, Sizeric.
Nice.
Within either, I think, probably tomorrow or the day after. So, Andy, if you want to coordinate something where if you look at the sun and I look at the sun at the same time, I'd be more than happy to do that.
I still have a solar filter for my 200 millimeter reflector, and I thought I saw something in our side chat earlier that Steven was actually interested as well in coordinating. So
yeah,
I don't know geographically where you preside, but it sounds like we would have a decent spread over a large enough area here in the United States that could be a lot of fun to coordinate.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. And the thing is that I'm not exactly sure this thing you're working with. I'm not exactly sure what it is or how it works. Like I said, radio isn't my theory yet. But if this may not work, and this may just make it explode, but a way to see if this thing, whatever it is that you're getting, is to see if it's actually something you're actually picking up and not just something inside of the actual device itself. You may want to try to build or have some kind of Faraday cage type thing where you can isolate the system to see if it's something that you're actually receiving from outside or if it's just something internal.
Mm. And another thing is you can also short the two connections on the input terminal to see if it is, because that should ground it out pretty well.
Or you can just do that.
Or that.
Or both.
Like I'm not a radio guy, so I'm open for input yet.
Well, this
not a radio guy yet.
Can we get what happens if I see with meat? I'm not sure if if the anti-echo is going to nullify the whole thing. Can you turn on the volume so we can try and hear what this is by any chance?
Let's see. There's.
It might be a wasted effort because the Google software or YouTube software is designed to prevent, echoing.
Let me try. I will stick one of my headphones up against my microphone, and I won't be able to hear you guys. So someone pop it out there in the chat if you can hear it, or something of that nature. I'll try.
Okay,
sure thing. See, this is when we need RJ to do that magnetism thing.
Yes.
I have no idea if you were able to hear anything.
Nada. Nothing.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that doesn't work then.
All right. Well, not a problem. All right, so you're getting close to fully functional unit status, and I must confess,
I'm getting close. I just don't entirely understand what I'm doing. It just happens to be functional.
Yeah, well, that's...
To be honest, I have no idea what you're doing either.
Baby steps. Baby steps. That's all you got to do. And the waterfall display, this is sort of interesting, and it doesn't look like an internal thing because an internally generated signal that was showing up would not have any width. It would be generally a single frequency, and like you mentioned, this is pulsing. There's the center frequency, that's what's at 0, and you see it pulsing out 5 kilohertz, almost 5 kilohertz in either direction, at unusual intervals, which tends to me anyway.
Well, actually, someone, not me or Andy or Sizerek, we have better things to do. Someone else who has too much time on their hands, do me a favor and translate the signal he's getting into Morse code. Go.
Actually,
I want to see what it says.
This would not be translatable into Morse code because it would be a series of dots at odd intervals. Well, there's no dashes involved.
Not with that attitude. It's not.
I'll translate it for you now. It's E.
Okay.
That works. It will just go forever.
It's a bunch of E's. It's a bunch of E's at odd intervals. Anyway, all right. So,
but yeah, this doesn't appear to just be an internal. An internal error that would be caused by the hardware itself.
It has bandwidth, and it's not a continuous or repeating pattern. That would be something cyclic or something like that. And,
indeed.
All right.
And like I say, for all I know, it's the receiver picking up my Wi-Fi. I don't know. I really don't.
Indeed. Well, it's a learning experience for everybody. That's why you started the show, isn't it? So we could all learn stuff.
Well, yeah, I never said that I was going to teach everybody anything. I just said that it was a place to learn and a place to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
I'm going to learn just as much. If everything goes the way that it should, I should learn just as much as everybody else.
Same here. I would agree. But
he's playing with a garage door opener.
And Andy, I have to say that your admonition about stability of mounting for these things, we're going to put a win in the Andy column. Here, you mind if I show my?
Oh yeah,
All
go
right,
for
here
it.
we go.
No
Let me get
worries. This does get oddly hard to listen to
Yeah.
over and over. I can't
Actually-
believe
Alright.
I have this patience.
This is
Aside strike, you're never going to believe me, but when you said you had some kind of radio device thing that was picking up signals from the sun, this is exactly what I pictured in my mind.
this was it. Got it.
Yeah,
All right. Okay. And
you have exactly met my expectations.
All right. Let's see, Andy. If you can you guys see my screen again?
I can see it.
Okay. Hill. Okay.
I don't know why it still says that I'm presenting.
You're still
on...
present. You're still presenting.
You can multiple dice strike is extra presenting.
Yes, I'm super presenting. Anyway,
All right.
Mega
All right.
presenting.
So you see the picture. That's you've seen this before. This is the construction in its present state. It's got a spotting scope. So eventually it's going to be, hey, I'm looking at Venus. Hey, look, I can see Venus, and I'm listening to Venus. Yeah, that sort of thing. Anyway, Andy, you mentioned that stability of the platform was key, and at the time we were talking about bearings and bearing failure and axis failure and stuff of that sort.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what we didn't actually talk about, which I didn't think about until I actually swung it over to point at the sun, and the weight on top of the tripod was somewhat offset. Bearings are fine. Drive mechanism's fine. Unfortunately, the tripod is a little bit light, so the whole thing kind of toppled over.
Oh no, I didn't think about counterweighting.
Yeah, that's
The,
you see
the
that
humanity.
That's only about a 3-pound weight down there at the bottom to counterbalance it. I got to put on about 5 more, and then I should be fine. But yeah, so that's the little spud at the moment. And no, to anybody that knows anything about satellite
Okay,
TV
my
dishes.
lip signal is getting faster now.
Ah, intriguing. Wait a minute, I've seen this in Independence Day.
Well, I am recording it.
I told
I've got
you
about.
it was aliens.
I'm just about to hit 7 gigs on recording of just this signal alone. So
interesting. You know what? I'm gonna have to try and listen to it later when we get
yeah.
a chance for that.
I'll have to send you the info. See if you're picking it up as well. Cause
what frequency is that?
oh, good grief! Let's see.
Did you say 10 megahertz?
No, my step is 10 hertz. 8 megahertz on my ZIF. What the hell is ZIF? I don't know most of these acronyms yet.
Okay.
Good grief. What is this thing? This actually looks like an old-timey radio tuner. It might actually give me some information I could use. Looks like I'm somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 megahertz? No, that can't be right.
Oh, sure it could. That thing will go up to
yeah, that's my high and low is 2,000 and 2,500.
Yeah, only reason I ask is because before you said I believe you mentioned 10 megahertz for something. It might have been the spectrum that you were looking at or something like that. But 10 megahertz, why does that ring a bell? God damn it, WWV. Anyway, so
yeah, this signal. I'm sorry, I gotta pop this up again real fast. This is changing rapidly.
Aliens. Damn aliens.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, Andy, just let us. Just please be safe. I'm afraid you're about to be abducted.
Well, if I am, I am. If I'm not, dang it.
You want to be presented again, Andy, or?
Well, sure.
Right.
The signal just keeps changing and fluctuating wildly. And in fact, when you started sharing, Sai, it changed dramatically.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So you may be broadcasting to your own receiver from your computer.
I very well could be. Like I say, I don't really know what in the world any of this is, but as soon as you started screen sharing and I was no longer screen sharing, the signal changed dramatically. Holy crap, I'm hitting 11 gigs. I should probably stop recording this.
Yeah, it's going to be a damn big file.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
All right. Well,
that is okay.
it is
I'm
kind of
done
cool.
with that for now.
It is kind of cool that you're going to be able to do this in one step. Now, I think I have to represent, or is that pronounced represent?
So actually, while you do that, Andy, I have a quick question. So how long do you think until you can weaponize this technology?
Well, based on my current progress, I would say it should be fully weaponized by 2019, let's say by March.
Great. Okay. Now
I'll
we just wait
And
about
I
5
will be
minutes.
able to deafen all of the cats. Or no, I won't deafen all the cats. I will make all of the cats in the neighborhood go apeshit by transmitting something that makes them go apeshit.
It's too bad there's no audio
I look
equivalent
forward
of a
to your-
red
And
I
dot.
look
that will
forward
be
to the
my
report.
mode of weaponizing a radio telescope, is make all of the cats in the neighborhood go crazy. They'll tell all the rest of the cats in the world go crazy.
It's just a matter of time before you take over.
Yeah, and then they'll push everything off the edge of the flat Earth, including us, and then cats will rule the universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like a catastrophe.
Oh my.
A
All right.
cataclysm, if you will.
Anyway,
Indeed.
back to the toppling unit. In addition to counterbalancing the thing properly, I was also thinking about a little beefier stand. I was recently looking at, have you seen those pipe bending jigs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of those. Big, heavy steel legs, big, heavy base on the top, intended for bending pipes, obviously. But it's got enough mass that there's not going to be any vibration or any weirdness going on of that sort. But
I am. Oh God. You know,
What's that?
the problem is, Cedric, I have a tripod sort of setup thing with me actually, just in the other room here, which is this huge metal thing. Someone just gave it to me because it used to be part of a really heavy set tripod thing, but the it's rather old, and the what's it called, the foot thing, the thing that you actually attach the camera to. Whatever that is, it's missing. I don't know where that is, but I basically just have this huge metal tripod thing, which is like 20 pounds, which just sits around in the other room, and I can't do anything with. So now I wish I could just. It sounds like you need something just like that.
Indeed, and we'll have to come up with some kind of good trade if I have
You
something
would.
cool that you can use.
Well, then
All right.
again, I might be able to trick you into something.
It's not like it's never been done. Anyway,
Indeed.
all right.
Oh.
So you saw Andy's. That's what you were looking at, by the way, is called a waterfall display.
Mhm.
Yes, us radio guys are not very creative. We look at it, looks like a waterfall. That's what we call it. Anyway, this is with this setup. I know what I was saying before is anybody who's familiar with satellite TV dishes can see that this spotting scope is not yet aligned with the dish, the way the dish is pointing. Looking at this picture, the received signal would probably come from quite a ways above where that feed horn is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's gonna miss by a good maybe 30 degrees or so.
Yeah, exactly. But both are adjustable, and once I get the sun was a little bit problematic to do because although I could point the dish at it, I was sort of hesitant to look through the spotting scope at the sun.
And for good reason.
Indeed.
Yeah, you probably you definitely want some kind of solar filter just for if you happen to want to look at the sun for that.
I'm thinking Venus.
You could always use a pair of tweezers and just hold an ant behind the eyepiece of your spotting scope and wait for him to spontaneously combust.
Or better yet, just get a pan with an omelet.
Really did two jobs at once. Anyway,
exactly.
There you go.
You saw Andy's
about the aiming thing. A good way to set it up more properly would be to basically point the what the fuck is that? What is that? The dish thing at the sun until it starts saying, "Holy shit, that's the sun! It's so hot! Oh my god, my eyes, they're burning!" And then basically you can
that'll do it.
Align the scope to match with the filter, of course.
Of course. Anyway, yeah. So that's the thing. And you saw Andy's display before. That's called the waterfall display. With the software that comes with the unit he got, it's all kind of monolithic. He's going to be able to do, like I said earlier, what I have to do with 3 separate programs. I was trying to keep it on the cheap for anybody that's building along, so they didn't have to spend massive amounts of cash. Here is. I get this.
Yeah,
Going.
I'll share the whole screen to show the whole. Once you're done, I'll share.
Okay.
I'll share my screen of my UI with this software after you do yours, and
Indeed.
that'll be yeah.
All right. This is the of the two programs that I'm running on the laptop. One of them is just a radio receiver. It's all on one screen, and this is it. The only thing it's able to do is output audio of varying levels corresponding to what you're looking at.
Quick size strike. Look at the chat.
You're awesome, Stephen Bauman.
Yes, you are.
Oh, hey. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. All right. Yeah, this is the radio receiver software. The SDR cost about $16. It's the RTL SDR. The thing is about as big as a USB drive, that you store files on. Very tiny little fellas. And this one is good up to, but for $16, I got an RTL SDR that can go up to about 2.4 gigahertz, which is perfect for this kind of application, because the LNBs here that you can see right here, those down convert the 10, 11, 12 gigahertz received signal down to somewhere hovering in the neighborhood of 2 gigahertz. So that's what we're looking at here. And the center frequency is where the peak is, and this is run at a very wide bandwidth because this was the first test. Let's see if it picks up anything, which it did. Now, what you're measuring from this, it's not a direct measure like Andy's will do. This down converts it to audio levels, which then I have to use a virtual audio cable. That's, for those that don't know, that's what you use to pipe sound from one program into another, because you can't plug actual audio cables, and that's the only way you can do it. So this outputs an audio signal that corresponds to the strength of the incoming signal. Then there's another program that graphs it. And this is the output you get from that. This is at the beginning, the low point where it starts. It was pointed at my lawn, not a notably good radio source. And then I just, for the first test, swept it up to the sun, and that's where we get the peak signal, and then it drops off a bit because I wasn't tracking the sun. Once I had it, I just left it. I figured that was good enough for a first test. And that's what you get. Now, things that are going to need to change, I'm going to have to narrow the bandwidth of the receiver so it's not just picking up everything. And then that'll cut out a lot of the spike noise we see on here. And we'll be able to track differences in the RF, the radio frequency energy the sun is putting out at specific frequencies. Fortunately, 10 to 12 gigahertz flies right through the atmosphere almost unimpeded. So it's a good frequency to observe, the sun, the planets, things like that. Any celestial radio source, it's a good frequency to use. But what this will allow us to do is, Hill mentioned that while Andy was doing these observations through his finished device, or I am, he can, he's going to have a solar filter, so he can take pictures of the sun as well. Things like sunspots, if we can correlate them to a change in the peak readings, and what the sun's up to, that would pretty much validate the experiment just once more. So that's it.
Absolutely.
I'm nearing completion. I'd give it another week, and we'll have a fully functional unit. And all right, Andy, I think
you got to remember, I am running about a week behind from where your status is. So
yeah, but you got the cooler receiver.
Well, I will give you that one. So I'll share real quick just to so that you guys can see what the UI that I'm working with is, because I'm effing swamped trying to learn this thing. There's so much happening in this.
Holy
It's-
shit.
Hold on. Let me share you. Here we go. Here's the hangout. Here, this is what. Let me pin you. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So that's this is the waterfall right up here that I was sharing earlier. All the rest of this is real alien to me still.
Aliens.
You know what? This should work with any SDR. Actually, looking at this, I may see how this works with mine. All right, that's kind of cool. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
Jesus Christ.
No, not a problem.
Can you like
Yeah, there's
TLDR this in like one sentence?
what the hell did I get myself into?
That's a good choice.
Dude, look at the button right above your signal strength meter. Power and signal to noise ratio to CSV. That's what I was saying before. With one button, Andy can do what I have to do with 3 pieces of software and a little bit of manual intervention. God damn it, I'm getting this. I'm getting SDR
it's
Uno.
worth it. It's worth it. If you're on a budget and you just want to sit down and get something working, absolutely. There's a million and one ways to go that are going to be a lot more affordable. This is almost a $200 receiver, and obviously people get rid of dishes all the time, so getting a dish isn't a problem. Splitting a dual LNB into a single LNB is not that difficult. But yeah, holy crap, there is way too much here for an amateur just getting into radio to really be able to understand what all of it means. It's overwhelming right now, but it just means that I have that much more awesomeness I gotta learn.
Wait a minute. SDR Uno is a free download, and that should work with any SDR. I'm gonna try. We're done here. I'm gonna try that with the SDR I've got.
Okay, it is getting about that time where I should probably eat some food and deal with. I've got about 1,000,000,001 black raspberries I still have to go and harvest today. They've just been blowing up. So,
somebody's
outside of looking at the universe as awesomely as I can, I also am a very avid gardener. So that it's that time of year for those of us in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, actually, speaking of the sky, first of all, sorry, I lost the ability to speak there. Andy, do you want to quickly, the opposition of Mars is coming up pretty soon.
Yes, it is actually. It's coming up on the 27th. I've already taken the day off of work, and there's something equally as sorry. I just clapped and didn't know if that was going to be loud.
That's fine.
There is something else also. So outside of the opposition of Mars and a lot of fun that's going to be happening that way. Something else that actually happens on the 27th that I haven't really let any of you know about, aside from a couple of you in the Hangout. I am actually going to be building a miniaturized planetarium inside of a parachute for some little ones to get their first experience of going to the planetarium when they're a little bit too small and too young and you can't field trip them. So I'm going to bring the planetarium to them as well on the 27th. So we get Mars opposition, awesome. And I get to build a miniature planetarium for toddlers over at the school that I still take classes at and technically a student at and have been for a goddamn long time.
Yeah. Actually, Sidestrike, would you mind so I can further show myself? Would you present me?
You are presented.
As a quick thing, this is a image which I took at the opposition of Jupiter about, what was it, a month and a half ago now.
And it's a great one.
Yeah, so here I unfortunately I didn't have the equipment to make out the surface of Jupiter like I wanted to. But I did get, as you can see, all 4 Galilean moons is in a lovely row.
And that's all just with the P900. You don't have...
Actually, this one was
You're
not
not
with
doing-
the P900.
Oh, okay.
This one is actually with my Canon T4i, mainly because it was just better. For one thing, the P900 had trouble focusing because it was pretty because of light and stuff. It just had a bit of trouble with that. So mainly, I was using this other camera because it had as a nice focusing ring for this. So I was able to get some pretty crisp images. Not to mention the P900 is great, but really only for stuff in very well lit situations. So the focusing and the other controls can take over if you or even certain other controls. Like it doesn't have as far as I know, it doesn't have a manual ISO control, which is difficult if you want to make out fine detail and stuff. But this other camera has great control for all of those things and a focusing ring. So that's how I got this image.
Very nice.
Coolness.
Yeah, Mars, it's such a bummer that the planet-wide dust storm is going on Mars right now. And for anyone unaware, it might actually... there's a very good potential that we might lose contact with the Opportunity rover due to this particular dust storm. It is planet-wide on Mars, and that's really unfortunate. The little bugger's gone so much further than expected, and something that was supposed to last 30 days has lasted to, well, it's going to be really sad if we lose contact with Opportunity because of the storm.
If everyone, what we have to do, we all just have to believe hard enough that it will survive.
Am I the only one
that it will?
Am I the only one that thinks of them as little entities out there and not just remotely operated robots? It's like, come on, you can make it through the
little
storm.
entities. I've made a lot of parts for a lot of different things that have both successfully and unsuccessfully made their way to Mars. It's
Jill.
I had my fingers in on a lot of parts of the Phoenix. I've had my fingers in on a lot of parts with a lot of different aerospace companies, and it's when one of those little buggers actually gets shot up into space, and let's say you made 100 of this one part, so that hopefully one would pass all the rigors and testing and X-ray non-destructive testing and ultrasonic non-destructive testing, and then maybe it was one of the ones that passed both of those and then got built into something that was going to be destructive tested. There's a possibility one of those things that you made it might be on a foreign planet.
Yeah.
And I know that that's the case for a lot of solar panel hinges that I made. A lot of things like that with Opportunity and with Phoenix. So it's when one of them goes silent, you got to remember it's not just the team running them over at Caltech or NASA or MIT or whoever's using it at the present moment. There are so many tens of thousands of people who put their work into these things that when we do lose contact, it's not like, well, I'll go buy another phone tomorrow because my old one broke. It's not that way. It's it's 15 years ago, something that I was part of making. Will it get there next week? I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
Will
Anyway,
someone forget to convert? No, because we fixed that, and now everybody uses SI the way it should be.
Yeah. Oh, and really quick, I'm sorry about that tunnel thing. I tried to turn off the presenting, but it just didn't work for some reason. I have one more picture that I want to show.
It's up.
From my You have it?
It's up.
Yeah. This one last picture I want to show for my trip. This is not photoshopped. I did not edit this in any way. This is a real, genuine picture which I took. Nothing about this is fake. This is all real.
Very nice. Very nice indeed.
Awesome.
And for those of you who don't know, that is in the distance. That is the Blackpool Tower, which has been another point of observation for certain flat earthers. So I just couldn't resist. I saw this sign that had particular, I forget exactly what word it was. I thought I need to crop this. This needs to be a picture. So, screenshot it, take it as you will. This is.
That's awesome.
Looks like CGI to me. That looks like CGI. And I might add, Hill, I don't see a curve in this picture.
Right. Well, actually, if you look at the top right hand corner of the sign, you'll see the curve right there.
There it is. Damn it!
Street signs are flat. I don't believe it. It's a perspective issue. Street signs are flat.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
But anyway, actually, if you take off the S, then it's just Hill.
Oh, look at that.
I don't call myself Hillel for nothing.
All right. Well, geez, Andy, long one today.
Oh, it was a little bit of a long one. But, it was absolutely worth it. Hillel did some amazing work and it sounds like an absolute blast. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the final numbers and everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to have you back here to go over that as well.
I would be honored.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Oh, and if anybody in the chat or anybody who watches this in the future is building along with the Build Your Own Radio Telescope project, don't forget to send us pictures. We'll
and also God help you. God help you.
We'll we'll of course show them during the show and tell everybody who made them and send us details of your adventures in constructing this beast, and we definitely look forward to seeing some of your successes as well.
All right. Absolutely. Any builds that you may actually want featured if you're following along with any of the projects that we wind up building, you're always welcome to, let us know in the comment section and we will take a look, because it's not worth trying to share awesomeness if you're going to ignore the people that are doing the same awesomeness as you. So
agreed. Most definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And also, like I said, may the Lord have mercy on your soul. Say, God help you. Because I mean, if you can understand whatever that is that Andy had on his screen earlier, if you can understand that, you are a better man than I.
Wait till you look into it, Hill. It's not. It looks frightening, but it's really not. And maybe when we finally get to 2 fully functional systems, Andy and I will probably go into great detail as to what's being received and how we're demodulating it and what it represents and all that. But
and you lost
indeed,
me. You've lost me.
No,
I think the biggest issue I have with this UI is that I no longer have a TV screen plugged into my computer, so I'm trying to look at it on a really small screen, and it's making me realize that I might need reading glasses. I don't like that.
That I could see where that would irk you to some extent. But
yeah,
anyway,
for the longest time, I just kept making my screen bigger and bigger and bigger, so it wasn't a problem. And well, crap.
The solution to me sounds like getting an even bigger screen.
Or sit closer. I mean, until your nose bumps, then you've kind of reached the tactical limit.
Yeah, it might just be time for some Walgreens reading glasses or something to that effect.
There you go.
It happens. I'm not that worried.
Alrighty. Well, that was kind of fun today.
Absolutely. I am getting quite hungry, though. I'm not sure about any of the rest of you.
Doesn't sound like a bad idea to go dine.
Indeed, it might be getting close to calling this Science Sunday an evening. Science Sunday on Thursday.
I'm
Details.
Hill, you have anything else to throw in?
No.
All right. Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Hill. I learned stuff from both of you guys.
Hey, that's always the plan. And likewise, thank you, Hill, and also thank you, Sai, for hosting hodgepodge of awesomeness that we have going on.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good.
Indeed.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, good night, guys. Good show, Andy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope you enjoyed another episode of Sunday Science. Whether it's Sunday or not, the science will commence.
Indeed. All right. Bye, all. Have a good what's left of the week.